It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at AmericasVoiceNow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host this morning. Glad to be your host every morning. You know, we're going to cover a kind of two areas this morning that are, I think, critical for our understanding of the day in and day out happenings that are going on around us. The first is the issues surrounding Obamacare. There's actually two segments to this. The first is that I'm titling this Obamacare clinically anemic. Because the news was broken yesterday that in the first 3 days, no more than 250 people, actually 248, had signed up for Obamacare. Now, whether that was because they were completely disenchanted with the overall offerings that were available or they couldn't get in, irrespective of what the reasoning is, the simple truth is that we have a system which is anemic in its scope and in its depth. And we are now finding out all kinds of terrible things, like the fact that they knew all along that up to 90 million people were going to be canceled. These are in addition to the individuals who are going to lose their insurance. Now, this is 90 million of the worker bees who receive insurance either through their small employment, small employers, or small business employers, I should say, or large corporations where their plans don't qualify for Obamacare. Which leads us into our second discussion related to Obamacare, and that is men who need maternity care and pap smears. I mean, the ridiculous aspect of this thing is that what we're being forced to buy as Americans, first and foremost, forcing you to buy into commerce in and of itself is a betrayal of everything that the United States of America and freedom and liberty and self-determination, self-governance stands for, which is what our country's founded on. Everything else is marketing. But beyond that, forcing people to buy care they cannot possibly physically, medically use so that you can subsidize those people who do need it but can't pay for it is income and wealth redistribution at its most blatant and exposed. The ridiculousness of this is so apparent to anyone who even looks even superficially at the surface of this thing. I find it hard to believe that America is, and of course, now, and some people are waking up. They're waking up to the tragedy of this because all along they thought, well, this is going to be a great program. Everybody's going to get covered, and it's not going to really affect me because I have it through my insurance, or my employer, and, it doesn't really matter. It's those poor people. They got to be taken care of. What they didn't realize is that it was going to be them taking care of them. And it was always the inimitable they, okay? Who's going to pay for it? And their attitude was, well, heck, if it costs me an extra $5 a year on my taxes, what do I care? I mean, at this point, they're beating me up so bad, it doesn't really matter. Well, now they're finding out that it's not $5 a year. They're finding out that it's $500 a month. And they're finding out that they have to buy care for things they can't possibly use. We're going to touch on that and get into further detail about that, including the outrageous statement that Kathleen Sebelius made that men actually often do need maternity care. I mean, how you could be more out of touch with reality is beyond my comprehension. But okay. Kathleen Sebelius is so unintellectual. I would have a hard time having a conversation with her. I really would. And I think anyone who is willing to be intellectually honest and look at facts and look at figures and understand the underlying issues here, we would have a hard time actually having a conversation, sitting across a table, having a lunch, let's say, with Kathleen Sebelius, even if she paid for it. So anyway, in some posh Washington restaurant, right? Our other topics are going to be a little bit more serious. And one of those is that there was news released this morning that China has not only nuclear submarines capable of widespread attacks on the United States of America. This is exposed in the Washington Times. But that they actually have a plan for the delivery of a nuclear attack domestically on the United States. Now, I got to tell you, I've about had my fill of China. I've about had my fill of these knuckleheaded nudge principles coming out of Washington that tell us that we should be emulating what we know to be a dangerous nation, or at least a dangerous political nation. A plan for a nuclear attack on the United States of America? And we call these people our friends? Really? Well, I've had enough. I'm going to suggest and recommend that we boycott all things China. Yes, I said all things. And I would like you to share the idea with your friends. I would like to expand and expose this issue for what it is. There's two reasons for it. The first is that it will actually help us to effectively not only starve our own beast, but that beast over there too. We're going to starve the dragon in D.C., and we're going to simultaneously starve the dragon in Beijing. And the reason for that is because this is a perfect opportunity to bundle one goal, one boycott that kills two birds with the same stone. So we can starve the totalitarians out of Washington, and we can cripple China with a single stroke. So I'm going to ask you, what say you? What have you got to say about this issue? I want feedback, and I'll open up our phone lines to take calls in reference to it as well. So if you'd like to call into the show, by the way, you're welcome to do that. You can call into us directly at area code 417-204-5141. That's 417-204-5141. We just put a new phone system in. You're welcome to try and use it. You'll have to bear with me if it doesn't work exactly as planned, but we're working on it. Okay. So our fourth and final topic this morning will be the issue of our military and how the top generals in the United States of America are being summarily purged. Now, this has been going on for some time. We keep hearing dribbles about this and dribbles about that. There is a move afoot on a national level to remove top generals out of the military. And I think there's some reasons behind it, and we can talk about it, but we're going to touch on that in our fourth and final segment. So let's get into our first topic, which is the idea of Obamacare as a complete and utter anemic failure. First and foremost, it was released yesterday under a subpoena. They had to actually subpoena. Darrell Issa is holding hearings, and he subpoenaed the results of the Obamacare sign-ups, if you will. Every time that they've had someone up on a stand, they've been either told, we don't know what the numbers are, or we won't release those numbers to you until November 15th. And so Issa went, and Issa, whatever you want to call him, he actually subpoenaed the records, and he got them. And so for the first 31 days, which is what we've just passed through, we've been, hearing that millions of Americans are visiting the website, and everybody's excited about it. Everybody wants it. Everybody is. I suspect, by the way, that people are looking at it. I've looked at it. I've tried to actually look at it so I could see what the deal was going to be, and so I could compare what an insurance policy would be for me and my family, and as a professional curiosity, because I wanted to talk about it here on the radio. I've never actually been able to get in. Multiple times I tried to register, couldn't do so. But they're telling us now that and by the way, on their Facebook page, they're actually offering you to download a paper copy, which is, absurd on its face, right? Here we are in the electronic digital age. They've built this magnificent website that cost us a couple of $100 million. Doesn't work. It's incapable of functioning. And on their Facebook page, they put up this banner. It's healthcare.gov. So if you wanna go to their Facebook page, it's like facebook.com/healthcare.gov or something like that. Anyway, I watch it because you should hear. And I'll tell you what, if you want to have some fun, go to their Facebook page. Seek it out and find it. I don't remember what it's called, but go to it. Don't like it because we don't want to give them any credibility here. But more importantly, it's a public page. So even if you don't have a Facebook account, you can read it and read the comments. I mean, there are very, very few that are positive. And so anyway, on their Facebook page, they're offering you for you to download a paper application, which I find uproariously funny. Here they are, basically, in the digital age, getting you to go onto a computer, to go to a website that is not healthcare.gov, to tell you that you need to download a paper copy. It's pretty absurd. But the truth is that we found out that in the first 24 hours, they had 6 people sign up. Yes, 6. Within 3 days, they had a grand total of 248. We don't know the numbers beyond that first 3-day window because that's all that was obtained via the subpoena. But what we do know is this. We know that the issue at this stage in the game is that, one, the healthcare system is far more, that they've devised, is far more broken than whatever we had before. I mean, today the news is out, and it's been trickling out a little bit as we go. There are a lot of documents that are being exposed, which show that the administration and even Democratic senators are acknowledging that they knew all along that, according to Forbes, some 93 million people were going to have their health care plans canceled. So let me explain to you how that works and what the deal is, because it is a little confusing. Originally, you were told you can keep your health care plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your hospital, you can keep whatever plan you have as long as you want to, period, right? That was the quote from the president. And the way that they were utilizing that quote was by saying, if you have an existing health care plan, it will be grandfathered in under the Obamacare situation or scenario. And so what they didn't tell you was that if your plan changed in any way, shape, or form, if your premium went up by $5, automatically your grandfathering ended. In other words, if your plan changed substantially, and they classified substantially as a $5 increase in the premium, or any change in the amount of care that you received. In other words, if they added, let's say a flu shot, or they subtracted a flu shot, your policy was therefore immediately cancelable. And so your grandfathering went up in a wisp of smoke. The reason they did that is because they knew for a fact that it would force a lot of cancellations. Now, they're trying to go out there and blame the insurance companies for it. They're trying to say that this is the result of the insurance companies' errors, and that you probably have heard the president claiming that these were lousy plans, that they were robbing Americans and basically offering low coverage for high premiums and so forth and so on. I think they're actually describing their own program, but that's okay. The reality is that the game plan here is real simple. They need bodies to participate here. And the only way they're going to get parties to participate is to force them into the system. Because once people see what these costs are, they don't want anything to do with it. And so by grandfathering these people in, knowing full well that the grandfathering was worthless, it was a worthless gesture, because every insurance company constantly changes your plan. Your premium constantly migrates and changes. I mean, premiums go up. That's just the nature of insurance, and especially with our rising medical costs. So they knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that with a restriction like that, they were dooming the grandfathering right up front. And they did so willfully, with full knowledge, and quite honestly, I look at it like malice aforethought. And it is malice. Their intention was that these plans would be, they could say, well, you were grandfathered in, but your insurance company, boy, they just cut your throat for you, and now we're going to jump in and save you with Obamacare. Wow. It's quite a statement. The truth is, they knew all along that your plans were going to be canceled, your grandfathering was going to be of zero value to you, and according to Forbes magazine, they've estimated that, and this is pulled from the government's own documentation, they've pulled from the numbers out that would be appropriate for the small businesses who have either self-insured or not self-insured, but insured plans for the owner and, the 5 or 10 or 20 employees, as well as the big corporations, the Microsofts of the world, the IBMs, and so forth and so on. The number that they're coming up with is about 93 million plans. Now, this is in addition to all the other plans that are going to be canceled that are people who are privately insured. In other words, they buy their insurance as a these are people who work at home, they work in their own home office or what have you, and they buy insurance just for themselves and their family. That number is estimated to be about 15 million. So we've got 15 million plus another 93, roughly 100 million people. Their plans are going to be canceled, and it's going to force funnel all of those cattle down the Obamacare chute, if you will. The idea is that since we can't get this thing off the ground with with the benefits, we're going to force you into it. And of course, the problem with that is that they're offering you things that they're telling you your plan is lousy. The real problem here is that it's not your plan is lousy, it's that it doesn't offer you maternity care if you're a man. I mean, what exactly are you going to do with pap smear coverage as a male? What are you going to do with maternity care as a male? It just stands to reason. What are you going to do with maternity care as a 50-plus-year-old couple? Let's take it out of the realm of the male for a moment. If you are 50-plus, or your female spouse is 50-plus, the odds are that you are medically beyond the date of having children. I mean, statistically speaking, the infinitesimal risk that you will have children above the age of 50 is so minuscule that, it's the equivalent of reaching, another Earth somewhere in the universe within our lifetime. So they knew up front that forcing people who are beyond the age of childbearing years to buy into maternity care would give maternity care to all those people who can't afford it but want to go out there and bang out all the babies they can. Secondarily, you're required to buy rehabilitation care even though you may not drink or smoke or do any kind of alcohol or drug use in your life. You're mandated to buy rehabilitation care. Now, you got to question the efficacy of that because at my age, I'm not about to start using drugs. Most of you who are listening are beyond the age where you're going to begin to pick up a drug habit. So forcing you to suddenly begin buying rehabilitation care when you don't drink and you don't smoke pot and you don't imbibe in cocaine or heroin or methamphetamine or any other type of drug is the height of absurdity. It's so unlikely that you're going to go out and buy yourself a crack pipe and get hooked on crack at your age that they know for a fact that all they're really trying to do is sell you coverage you can't use because your money will help to float the entire boat. That, ladies and gentlemen, is wealth redistribution. And that is a Marxist principle that is inconceivable to most Americans, unacceptable, un-American, and frankly, totally against the principles of capitalism, which is what this nation was built on. I'm tired of hearing that capitalism is demonized because it makes the wealthy get wealthier and the poorer get poorer. Capitalism is only a failure when you have government intervention in the free market. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is not government intervention. This is restraint of trade. If you were a corporation who did this to another entity who was your competitor, you would be before a court on a criminal and civil charge of collusion, conspiracy, of utilizing or misappropriating your marketplace power to put your competitor out of business. This is restraint of trade. When you have a government that says, we can tell the insurance companies what they must sell you, we're no longer in a free market. When you can say, this hospital is acceptable, this one is not. This doctor is good, this doctor is bad. We are no longer even in the same state, much less the same ballpark as capitalism. And that is the premise behind this. Break the back of capitalism, capture 1/6 of the entire economy, bring it up underneath your wing, utilize that simultaneously to gather all of the data and information to build dossiers on every American, while simultaneously redistributing the wealth of the nation from the haves to the have-nots. These are planks of authoritarian regimes. Now, I don't care whether you want to call them socialism, call it socialism, communism, fascism, whatever. Authoritarian is authoritarian. And that means that the government is dictating the rules and the winners and the losers. I suspect, and I believe this thoroughly, that the real premise behind all of this is to ultimately get to single payer. That's the game plan. That's the holy grail of authoritarian regime. Because once you've captured the entire nation's healthcare system, and you're into a single payer or universal healthcare, as they refer to it, and we've got documentation from Obama back in 2003 saying he's a stalwart believer in universal single payer. Wow. They've said all along that their real ultimate goal was universal healthcare. They just couldn't get to it right away. So this is the interim step to get you there. This is the slide, the descent, the graduation. This is the frog in the pot. The frog is tossed into the pot at room temperature, and the heat is slowly increased. It's a graduated slide into tyranny. What we're experiencing here today in the United States is soft tyranny. I admit that. I've had people say to me, we don't live in a police state. I disagree, we do. It's just soft. But I can tell you this, knowing human nature, looking back at history, having experienced and read a lot of the history of previous regimes, previous national attempts to change and migrate their governmental and political systems, it is destined to move forward and to eventually become hard tyranny. Because once the corporatocracy demands or exceed the capability of the people to accept them, then government must use its steel fist to force upon the populace what they've been paid to deliver. That's why your Congress has sold you out. Both parties, they've all taken their 30 pieces of silver, and that's the truth. Anyone who wants to look at it any other way is either biased towards one party or another, or is not willing to look at the issue in its totality. We are living in a period of tyranny in which we're actually watching the slide forward. And tyranny never happens overnight. Not even in places like Mao's China. Not even in places like Stalin's Russia. Not even in Nazi Germany. Or Mussolini's Italy. It's always graduated. It's never just, on Thursday morning you wake up and boom, we now live in a police state. It's never that. It takes time. And it takes the acquiescence and the agreement of the people. Or their acquiescence and agreement via what? Silence. Their silence is their agreement. Their refusal to take action, their refusal to become a grassroots force against that tyranny is agreement and acquiescence and permission to move forward. And that is why we constantly push the idea that every one of us, whether you're a listener who lives locally, or whether you are someone who lives far away, whether you are in business, whether you are an employee, whether you are a churchgoer or not, we are all leaders within our circle of influence, our personal circle. Everybody doesn't have to have a radio program. Everybody doesn't have to have a TV program. Everybody doesn't have to write letters to the editor. But each of us has an obligation to work within our own personal circle of influence to change minds and to change the principles under which people will accept what's happening. Your family, your church, the school you attend, the school you work at, whether or not you have a group of people that you routinely spend your time with, your free time with, whether it's 4 guys that you have lunch with at work. And I don't care whether work is you drive to a restaurant in a Mercedes-Benz, or whether 4 guys go out and sit at a park bench and take their lunch out of a metal box. Those are your circles of influence. That's what you can change. And every one of us has an obligation to affect the circle of influence directly around us. We need every patriot on board right now. All hands on deck. The klaxon is ringing. The question is, are you listening, and are you acknowledging it and then taking action? There is no other alternative. We can allow this to continue, or we can stop it in its tracks. Our job is to stop it in its tracks. That's the one thing we can do before we leave this earth, is hand over the flaming torch of liberty to our progeny. What they do with it, we're not responsible for. We can sure give them some great ideas. And I gotta tell you, I don't have a lot of faith in our youth. But I also can tell you that if we do not hand over the torch of liberty, we know the end result. You don't have to have a great and broad imagination to envision what's coming. We're going to take a break. When we return, we're going to tackle our second topic, which is Kathleen Sebelius's statement that men often do need maternity care. And I've got to understand how that can be. Unless she went to a different biology class than I went to in high school. Kathleen is a little confused. So we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk more about that. You're listening to America's Voice Now. You can find us on our website at AmericasVoiceNow.org. You can find us on our Facebook page at Facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And then you can find our YouTube channel at YouTube.com/America's Voice Now. I've gotten a lot of requests for podcasts after the interview that I did with Jack Spirko the other day on Survival Blog. And the question I have out there for a group of you is quite simply this: if any of you have any experience with doing, I could use some help. I'm pretty much a one-man band. I do most of what and Jack does too. He's just been at it longer than I have, I guess. I could really use some technical help. If any of you out there are capable of working with me and assisting me in things like keeping up our website, maintaining Facebook posts, working with audio files and doing conversions, setting up a Spreaker program and Blog Talk Radio, stuff like that. If any of you have any of those skills, please email me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. I am overwhelmed and dramatically underpaid since I do this voluntarily, and I would certainly love to be able to work with some folks who have the skill sets that we need to be able to move our program forward. If you're one of those people and you'd be willing to help, by all means, please send me an email. That would be mike@americasvoicenow.org. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to talk about this issue with Kathleen and her confusion regarding whether men can have children. Kind of strange. She must have gone to a different high school or college than I went to, because last I heard, men don't need maternity care. They cannot use things like pap smears. Maybe she knows something we don't know, huh? We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Please contact me with feedback on any of our programs at mike@americasvoicenow.org. We'll be right back.